glad you guys are here. We're wrapping up our series on family. And just so you know, this morning's message was not what, sometimes you got to do what God says. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Sometimes, this is not a topic that I was looking and saying, hey, I can't wait to get to this one. I've enjoyed the first 3 in this series. But this one, I'm going to talk about money. How do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let's think about money for a few months. How do we manage money? I mean, this time and this virus, and we're going through this pandemic, and I was in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about what happened 2008. I don't know how many of you was affected, 8, 9, 10, and the big crash we had, and all that's gone on, and how do we deal with our money? Just so you know, the number one issues family face and argue about the most is money. All right, some of you guys know. Probably you do that, right? Anybody besides me argue about money in the home? Everybody's got all your finances are all okay. You guys have no issues. It just seems to flow. As I was thinking about today's message, I'm going to kind of be meddling today. I'm going to kind of be meddling in your life today. Because I want to think about money, but you start talking about money, and the first thing to think is, the church all it wants is money. I've been at this church going on over 37 years, and I could probably count the times I have spoke on money. Probably you guys have been with me. This church, we never had an issue there. The people who come, the people who participate in this church have always been a generous church. I've never had question. We never had anything. Just so you know, we're sitting in a building that was built by the generosity by many of you and others who preceded you. Just so you know, when they built the church, you do a building campaign, and you can pay companies to come in and lead a building campaign for you, and they'll take a percentage of the giving to cover their costs. Well, I bought a kit from a church that was $140, and we just took that kit, and we just worked through that kit, and we raised, which was an unusual amount. If you can raise 1 year's budget in a giving campaign for a 3-year giving plan, you've done good. If you do 2 years, you're exceptional. If you do 3 years, you're over the top. This church, in a 3-year campaign, we're nearly over the top. We did about 2.5 our budget in a 3-year campaign. The church has always been giving, so I don't have to preach on giving. But today I'm going to talk about money, but I'm not going to talk about the money you give to the church. I'm going to talk about the money in your pocket. Anybody got money in your pocket? How many of us don't carry money anymore? I was in San Francisco and went to eat at a Chinese restaurant in San Francisco. We sat down, we order, and then for something reason I go, the waitress comes over to bring some stuff to us. I said, do you guys take credit cards? She goes, no. And I had no cash, nothing. I had to hoof it down to Bank of America and take some money out of the bank because I didn't have any cash. How do we deal with our money? And it's an issue, and it's something we fight about. But we're different. We're unique. Everybody has different ideas and different thoughts about money. And it is the number one issue families argue about the most. The number one issue that causes divorce is an affair. Second on that list, 41% of divorces are caused by money. Money. How do we handle that money? How do we go over it? Anybody ever stress over money? Anybody ever fret over money? You guys are so calm in here. Am I just that different? I mean, am I that weird that it's, the end of the month, today's the 28th, all right, and I don't know about you. I got an email, just so you know, I got an email from PG&E and MID. Anybody get your emails? I got an email from PG&E and MID saying, you're going to owe this much money on such and such a date. This week I got 2 emails. Anybody, how do we go through, how do we deal with money? How do we deal with our finances? How do we have, and what I want to talk about, here's what I want to drive at. I want to have a proper perspective of our money. Let me ask you a question. If you make something, you create something, who does it belong to? Is it yours? You made it, you created it, it's yours. Well, who created this world? Who made this world? So who owns everything in the world? Let me tell you something. I don't worry about the money you give, and God doesn't worry about the money you give. God worries about the money that you keep. We need to be good stewards of not just what we give to a church or to ministry or to whatever God has called us to give to organizations, but we need to be stewards of what we have left and what's in our pockets. And that's what I want us to think about this morning. But I want a proper perspective. So here's the verses I kind of was drawn to. It's found there in the Sermon on the Mount. This is Jesus himself. Here says this: don't store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, or where thieves break in and steal. But store for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves don't break in and steal. All right? Where's your treasures, is what he's saying. You know, what do you treasure? Stuff? Trips? Toys? I like toys. Big toys. You know? What do you treasure? Appearances? You know? How many remember when you went to school you had to have that little alligator on your shirt? Anybody remember the little alligator? You know, you had to have the right shirt. Now, some of the ladies had to have the right symbol on their jeans. You know, you had to have the right label on the jeans, you know. You had to have this image, you know. You worry about that image out there, you know. How do we do, what do you treasure? I'm going to ask you this morning. Do you have a proper perspective of the treasure? Because here's what Jesus ended that statement with. I saved this. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is. If our treasure is stuff and toys and trips and image, if that's our treasure, where does family fit in? Where does marriage fit in? You know, as I was writing this, here's the verse that came to my mind. It's right there, Proverbs 31:10. A truly good wife is the most precious treasure a man can find. Where's your treasure? Yeah, I claim that. You know, Laura is a treasure. You know, my spouse. But how often does money become a hindrance? Become an issue? Become a stumbling block? You know, and you know, like I say, this is not a message I was looking forward to preaching. You know, it's like I don't. You know, I like the other two messages I preach. You know, creating a legacy. Man, that I enjoyed that message. You know, my family belongs to God. You know, I enjoyed that message. You know, and last week, you know, I enjoyed the message there. You know, and then this week I got to preach on money. But yet it's an issue. You know, because we're different and we have different things. How do we deal with this? How do we proceed? How do we do this? Now, I'm going to tell you there's some great resources out there. You know, years ago, Crown Ministries, Larry Burkett had wonderful programs. He's still out there. You can still see Crown Ministries. You know, today, Dave Ramsey's the one that's kind of in the forefront. He's more, you know, he's kind of the new guru out there right now. He's more contemporary, and it's Dave. But I'm going to tell you what's interesting. They both talk the same plan. Get you a bunch of envelopes, put your money in envelopes, and manage your budget. You know, they both do the same thing. But how do we do that? How do we deal with our finances? And so I'm going to give you just some quick points, then I'm going to move on. Take it what you want, do with what you want, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't deal with your money right, it's going to be tough on your marriage. It's going to be stressful on your marriage. I require marriage counseling if you're going to get married. If I'm going to do your wedding, and I'm getting to the point where if you're going to get married in this church, you're going to go through marriage counseling. You know, I just believe in that. And Dan and Linda do marriage counseling. It was great. My granddaughter got married. They did marriage counseling over the internet, I guess, with Dan and Linda. But I got to talk with them, and they really appreciated it. I was telling Dan and Linda how much they appreciated what they did. And they talk about money in the conference and how to deal with your money. Because we need to approach that. We need to look at that. And we need to think about it. So here's my 4 points real quick. Well, 3 points, 4 points. I don't know. We'll just see what we end up with here. How about this one? It's our money. It's our money. No, it's my money. I earned it. It's mine. Mine is mine. Or no, wait. No. What's mine is hers, and what's hers, right? Isn't that the way it usually works? No, it is our money. I've had couples that keep separate bank accounts. He's got his account, and she's got her account. He pays these bills, she pays these bills. I'm going to tell you, sooner or later, that blows up. All right? It just doesn't work. When you get married, what does the Bible say? This is why a man leaves his father and mother and bonds with his wife, and they become one flesh. That includes your money. All right? You put it all together. This was something, I never even thought about this until I became a pastor. It's like when I got married, it's our money. But it's really nice because when it's our money, I control it. Isn't that how we do it? Yeah? No, it's something that we work on together. We're two people, but we pull our money together. We work on this together. You got joint accounts, and because these all cause issues. All right? Somebody comes in, and this is one thing I'm hearing a lot of right now is, we have this college debt. And people get married with college debt, and somebody brings that to a marriage, and it's, well, whose debt is it now? And how are we supposed to pay this debt? And you caused this debt. And people, I've had to deal with those arguments on those kind of things. And so we need to step back. Whose money is it? Whose money does it belong to? And this is all of ours. I want to make sure if you become one, you become one. That includes money. I got a picture. I should have got the picture. I had a picture of a person getting baptized, and the person's going underwater, and they're holding their wallet up while they're underwater. But when you get married, it's ours. Okay? Now, like I said, I'm meddling this morning. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you guys keep separate accounts, but I'm going to tell you, if you do, you're going to be moving towards a crash at some point. All right? I mean, just so you know, the courts already see this. If you get, if you're married and you get a divorce, they get half of your pension fund. Did you know that? The courts already acknowledge this stuff. You might as well face it and start pulling this together. You're a team. You're one again. And it's one in the flesh, and it's our money. It's ours. The second point I put down here kind of contradicts that, but it doesn't. Recognize your differences. It's our money, but we're different. All right? We come back with different experiences. We have different ideas on what's important. We have different ideas on what you need. One of the conversations Laura and I used to always have, which goes first? When, anybody ever have a tight budget? Anybody when you're just trying to creep through? House payment or rent or food? Anybody have to fight that battle? I had. Do you pay your house, or you got to go buy some food? And I vote for the house, and Laura votes for the food. But I can tell you who's right. I'm right. Right? Here's what the verse says again. Listen to this verse again. Listen. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother. This is Jesus, just kind of quoting the Old Testament. And the two will become one flesh. They are no longer two, but one flesh. And I circled one flesh. Money is flesh. Personality is different. You ever notice how opposites attract? How many, I don't want to ask it, but how many are opposite? Just look around. And how many of you are opposite of your spouse? Laura and I we're opposite. Now, just so you know, I'm a penny pincher. All right? I'm not stingy. I got people shaking their head at me because they know me. I'm not stingy. I am generous. I give. Just so but I will, if I'm going through a flea market or a garage sale and they got 50 cents on something and I got $1, I'm not buying it. I'm not going to break $1 for 50 cents. I'm not going to break a $5 bill for $1. That's my uncles and all them know that. That's just, now I'm not saying Laura's a spender, but Laura's a little loose with her spending than I am. Now, do you ever think that causes an issue? I'm just always so peaceful. Those that know me, know nothing bothers me. I just say, okay, Lord, whatever. Now, money it's stressful. But we need to understand we have different personalities. Now, here's the problem. And here's what I wanted to put a warning in here and say, warning, warning, warning. Because here's the situation. You have to turn those off. Just so you guys know, I worked on those this week. Never had it, left them on for 2 days, all day, and never had an issue. I'm getting, maybe Laura sent it that way. She's on Facebook right now. Now I forgot where I was going. Oh, here's warning, warning, warning. Because see, here's the problem when it comes to these differences. They're going to just turn it off, unplug it, do whatever we got to do. There we go. Here's the significant thing. See, I've sat down and I've figured it out, and I've wrote it all out, and I've thought all through this, and I've added the numbers up, and I've got it the right way. Right? I mean, I've got it all done. I've got it all figured out. I've got it all outlined, and my way is the right way. And so you just sit still, and I'll end still, and we'll be okay. See, I think this is a big problem, and I like this verse here. Everyone should look not only to his own interest, but rather to the interest of others. I may have it worked out for Gary, because I've thought it through. Mine's the logical one. Mine makes sense. Mine is the right way. And somebody else's is, if you just, we just got to have the conversation long enough till you agree with me. Come on, you guys are setting out because you do that, right? We're just going to talk about this long enough until you cave in and say, yeah, you're right. It doesn't work that way. We need to understand the differences. We need to understand that, hey, we have different ideas, we have different thoughts, we have different ways of looking at it. We were brought up in different homes, we had different experiences in life, and so there's some discussions and some conversation, and yeah, just because I've got mine all figured out doesn't mean somebody else doesn't have a good idea, somebody else doesn't have something figured out. And so I put that in there, and so there's a warning there. I want to put a warning there. Just because it makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense to someone else. Does that make sense? Just because you got it all figured out and you think yours is the right way, sometimes we need to hear input from others. We need to listen to others. Money, when you talk about money, things get funny. It's stressful. But we need to back up and just, hey, let's understand one another. Let's see it from somebody's different perspective, and let's hear what others are saying and what others are experiencing. And so I put that there. So first it's our money. You got to recognize the differences, and then I'm going to get to this one. Get out of debt. Debt will kill you. Debt will kill a marriage. Debt is not good. All right? It is one thing that will drag you down. It will stress out your marriage. You'll worry about everything. Those credit cards. I've walked around the middle school over here, and they had a board put out by a bank with credit card information on it for kids who are in middle school. Yeah, it's like I just, how do we deal with debt? Now, if you're lucky, you got some money, you might get a house out of debt. I don't know how you can pay cash for a house, but I know people do. A car, I always struggle with a car. Now they got 7-year car payments. And I decided a long time ago I bought a new car, and then ever since then I've been buying used cars. That's it. Then the church was generous. What's nice, you get a church that loves you. They give you a car they pay half the price of your car. It made it real nice. I just had to come up with the other half. But we need to watch that debt. It stresses a marriage. It stresses someone's life. How many can remember walking through Sears? Come on now. Let's date ourselves. You walk through Sears. You walk through the appliance department. Now, as you're walking around the appliance department, they have the tags above the machines. This one says $16. This one says $19. This one says $25 a month. Didn't tell you the price, and the small print was the price. The big print was how much you're going to pay a month. And what my son is, he was buying a car when he was in the Army, and you know what they wanted to know? How much can you afford a month? I want to know what you want to charge me for the car. They want to know how much you're going to pay a month. Debt is. Here's what God says: just as the rich rule over the poor, so the borrower is a servant to the lender. Who owns you? That's basically the question. Who owns you? Here's some notes I put down here. 80.9% of baby boomers are in debt. 79.9% of Xers are in debt. And 81.5% of millennials are in debt. It stresses you. It's physical. Anybody ever get an ulcer worrying? Stressing? Emotional? Spiritual? Debt is something that will make you a prisoner, make you a slave. Here's again, I like what God is just so wise. Do not owe anyone anything except to love one another, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. Don't owe anybody anything. Now, how do we live in a world that functions on debt? How do we go through this? How many can remember? I'm getting old. How many can remember? How about this? Layaway at Kmart. Come on, don't you remember layaway at Kmart? You go to Kmart, they had a whole window in the back of the store, had the big word written above it, layaway. All right? How many remember this? Maybe banks still do this. How many remember a Christmas savings account? Anybody remember Christmas savings account where you put so much in every month so when Christmas comes along, you have money for Christmas? Am I getting that old that most of you guys have no idea what I'm talking about? Just so you know I'm not the oldest one in here, all right? So I know some of you just don't want to raise your hands, okay? Online, don't think you're getting away with it, all right? But we're in this, we need it now. What's so interesting is something's on sale and you're going to save 25%. And you got to get it because it's on sale and you're going to save 25%. So you go charge it at 18% interest. Whoa, I got a deal. 2 months, it's over. If you don't pay it off, man, it's done in 2 months. We need to understand debt will kill you. Literally. It will weigh on a marriage. It will weigh on your life. It will stress out the family. You just never have it. See, because we live in a world where it's always just a little bit more. I tried to look, years ago, I used it in one of my sermons, but I can't remember, I was trying to find the numbers on it. They ask everybody, how much more do you need? They went to somebody who made $50,000 a year and said, how much more money do you need to really be comfortable? And he goes, like $5,000 more. They went to somebody making $75,000. How much money do you need to be comfortable? Oh, I need another $10,000. They went to somebody making $100,000 and he just needed a little bit more. When somebody making $150,000 and he just needed a little bit more. How many of us just need a little bit more? Don't raise your hand. Don't say anything online. How many just need a little bit more? I don't know about you, but I always spend what I have. If I don't have it, I don't spend it. But there's always more things out there that I want. I could give you, anybody want my Christmas list? How do we do this? How do we stay out of that? So how do you stay out of debt? You live within your wage. Here's what I'm going to do here. We're going to make a budget. How many want to have a budget? Anybody want to have a budget? Anybody like a budget? How about this? Let's make it a positive. We're going to get a spending plan. Doesn't that sound better than budget? Here's your budget. No, here's your spending plan. You get to spend only on this. You know? And we need to understand that we need to have this plan. We need to sit down and talk about it and discuss it and figure this out. How much is it going to cost? And what are we going to have to pay? And who are we going to do this? And how are we going to accomplish this? You know? How many would ever dream you're buying water now in bottles? Think about that. Years ago, I'd walk up to the house, turn the water hose on, and get a drink out in the front yard. But now, no, I got to have bottled water for some stream somewhere. I don't even know where it's at. You know? What's the world? I mean, how do we budget? How do we go through? You know? You got to have a TV with 500 channels? You know? Got to have the newest smartphone. You know, how do we budget? Now, I'm going to tell you, there's nothing wrong with all of that. All right? There's nothing wrong with all of that. But you got to put it in a proper perspective. Here's a scripture, Luke 14:28. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, who wants to build a good marriage, let's put it this way, doesn't first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? You sit down and what do we have? How are we going to make this work? How do we prepare for this? What do we do? How do we get this done? How do we have all of this? How do we make this work? And there's a formula out there. Most of this formula I see the most. Anybody ever heard this 10-10-80? Anybody ever seen the 10-10-80 formula? You know, the 10-10-80 formula. You save 10, you give 10, and you live on 80%. Andy Stanley says it this way: you got to know where you got to be knowing where your money's going. You know, you got to get a budget, and so they have this 10-10-80. I mean, whether it's Larry Burkett or Dave Ramsey, just so you know, John D. Rockefeller, that was his plan. John D. Rockefeller, he gave 10% to his church. He saved 10%, and he lived on the 80%, but his 80% was a big chunk. All right? At his time, he was the wealthiest man. Most of the antitrust laws are because of him. But you do that. That's the plan. That's the principles. So I wrote it this. I'm going to use Dave Ramsey, okay? I'm going to take the Dave Ramsey's comments. So these are not mine. These are his words, and I liked it. You got to act your wage. Act your wage. How much do you make? One time, Laura and I were in San Francisco for a school board conference. All right? So we're going to go to the school board conference. So we're down on Union Square, and across from Union Square is a store called Neiman Marcus. And so we decide, let's walk through Neiman Marcus. All right, so I walk into Neiman Marcus, all right, and I didn't fit. You know, now I'm going to be honest. There's nothing wrong with if that's your budget and that's your wage, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. All right? I have, you know, if that's where... Now, I'm going to tell you, if I was going to go meet the president or somebody, maybe I want to go there. You know, I'm sure my wife would want to get a dress from there to go see the president or something. You know, you got to have the best. You know, I was wearing... Anybody remember seersucker suits? Come on now. Don't act innocent out there online. Don't think you're getting away with that, you know. I left seersucker and went to J.C. Penney's for my suits. Anybody else? You know? But yeah, I walked into Neiman Marcus, and we're walking down the aisle. I'm sorry, I had never been in there, you know. And here's a $600 dress, you know, or a $500 sweater. And I'm just going, nobody wanted to help us. Nobody walked up and said, "Can we help you?" You know, I don't guess I look quite, you know. But there's nothing wrong with that store. I want to make sure you understand, I'm not putting that store down. But for me to act my wage, it is not Neiman Marcus. All right? Sears, Pennies. I like Kohl's now, where you get the 30% discounts. You know, I'm going to tell you, my wife is a bargain hunter. Those who know my wife, and they go shop my wife, know my wife, she finds the bargains. I mean, she finds stuff that you just, where'd you find it? Oh, it's over there on the I have $2 pair of pants from Kohl's. Levi, Strauss, they're not, they just happen to be on the rack. They were, for some reason. We need to live within our budget. We need to make a budget on what I make. 10, 10, 80. Do I live within what I make? Here's a verse. But a foolish man devours all he has. You ever know anybody that the money burns a hole in their pocket? You ever say that about somebody? It just burned a hole in their pocket. Anybody have kids? You give them money and it's, before they even get home, it's already spent. How do we go through? You got to live within it. Now, you need to know it's hard. There was a time, just so you know, there was a time for Laura and I when we gave up our cell phones. We turned cable TV off. There was a time when things got really tough. Can you imagine? I'm sorry, you can't have TV anymore. There's been times you have to make decisions. Either you have one thing, turn things off or get a second job. Just so you know, there was a time I had 3 jobs. My first pastorate, I had 3 jobs. Very different jobs too. I was pastoring a church, working at a funeral home, and working at a school district. Because you got to live within that wage. And I like the way you said that. Act your wage. I don't want to act my age. I got to act my wage. How about this next one? Save and invest. I think the pandemic has done a good job here. I think the pandemic has taught us you need to have a savings account. Ramsey and all of them, and Larry Burkett and all of them talk. You need to have 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. Now I don't know about you. I'm not there yet. I have an emergency fund, but I don't have 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund. But I think it's taught us that the study says here, what the Federal Reserve says, 39% of Americans could not pay for a $400 emergency. 39% couldn't pay for a $400 emergency. But we need to have some savings. We need to be putting some down. You know that verse I just read about the foolish man? Here's what it says before that. In the house of the wise are storehouses of choice food. You save a little. I think that 10, 10, 80 is a really good idea. The Bible doesn't say that. Just so you know, the Bible doesn't say debt's a sin either. Did you know that? It doesn't say that. But it's still not wise. But are we putting some money aside, just saving a little? They're talking about the baby boomer generation in retirement, not having a retirement because they didn't save. They're not. If you're going to plan on retiring on Social Security, you're in trouble. And so you need to think about these things. And like I said, I'm meddling today. Isn't this fun to hear the preacher meddle in your life? I'm getting in your pocketbook. I don't want your money. I want you to be good stewards of what God has blessed you with. That's what I want. Because I don't want your marriage. I don't want to set you in my office saying, we're arguing over money. No, let's solve the problem now. All right. But we need to save and invest a little bit. 3 to 6 months worth of savings, putting a little bit aside, making some stuff there, and being able to take care of that. How about the last one I put here, give? You need to give. Now, the world doesn't talk too much about giving. The world talks about taking. But God cares about the giving. We need to be sharing. We've been blessed. We need to be sharing. And like I said, I don't need to preach on that in this church. This church has always been a generous church. We've always given. And the people have always been faithful, and God is blessed, and God has blessed the ministry. And I believe when you give, God blesses you. I believe that God blesses, and then as you bless, He blesses you with more. I see that. But we need to understand that part of us is to give it away. How about that old saying, it's more blessed to give than to receive, isn't it? Like I say, as a grandparent, you know what Christmas is all about? Me getting stuff. No. As a grandparent, Christmas for me is all about my grandkids. Not even my kids. Forget the kids. It's about the grandkids. That's what it's about. It's given, it's seeing their faces when you give them that. And it is. There's something about it. But part of it's stewardship with God. I can quote you all sorts of verses about how you're supposed to tithe to the church and then give you all of that. But that's not what this message. I just want to make sure you understand that part of our responsibility as believers and part of our responsibility as God's stewards of all that God has bestowed upon us is to give back a portion of what He's blessed us with as part of it. Now, like I said, this message was not one of my high lists. I can't wait to preach this one. Here's my list. Just so you know, I got a list. I can tell you right now what I'm going to be preaching all the way through the day, Sunday after Mother's Day, except I just haven't decided on Mother's Day yet. I got my next series all outlined. I can tell you, I'm excited about next week's message, okay? I wasn't excited about today's message. Talking about money is no fun, all right? But I'm going to tell you, if I don't talk about it and you don't talk about it, it's going to be no fun. Yeah, am I right? You have to have these discussions. It's our money. It's ours. And we are different. We have different ideas. We have different thoughts. We have different priorities. We've got to get rid of that debt. Like I say, you can go to Dave Ramsey, go to Larry Burkett, the snowball effect. They have the snowball effect, and they have an avalanche thing. I don't know. They have all sorts of ways to get out of that stuff. But you get out of, and then you get on a budget, and just you live with what you make. And then you save a little bit. You invest a little bit, and then you give a little. And if you're talking about it, it makes a better marriage. And I just felt this was a message that I needed to preach, not that I wanted to preach, okay? Because it's really been a tough time right now. People have lost jobs. People haven't been working. There's been difficult, trying times for people. I look at waitresses, and the struggles at the, trying to make a living when half the places are closed down and half of them don't get to work, and, we'll work you 2 days and we'll work this one 2 days and you can work 2 days and we got one extra day. We'll split. How do you go through that? So here's what I challenge for you this morning. I begin with those verses, where your treasure is. I want to ask you, do you have a proper perspective of your finances? Do you have, I don't care how long you've been married. I've been married 40 some odd years. All right? We still have discussions about money. All right? I don't think it's ever going to go away. I'm not a tightwad, but I am a penny pincher. No, we don't need that right now. Yeah, my cell phone's got a crack in it, but I had to pay car registration this month. So I'm going to have to wait to get me a cell phone because I had to pay car registration this month. Anybody make those decisions? But you have those conversations. So that's what I wanted to ask you this morning. So I'm going to ask you as I end this message is, where's your treasures? Do you treasure your marriage? Do you treasure your spouse? More than the toys and the stuff and the trips? More than an image? Do you treasure your family? Because I'm going to tell you this, and my God will supply all your needs according to His riches in glory in Christ Jesus, Philippians 4:19. And I can testify to that. And I believe there's many of you online, I believe many of you here could raise your hand and say, God has provided for my needs every time I've had it. I think those hands could go up everywhere on that, because that's who God is. But I want to encourage you to have the proper perspective in the family. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you that you provide for us, that you truly do open the windows of heaven and pour out your blessings upon us. But Lord, money can be tough. Can be tough on a marriage, can be tough on a family. Lord, we want to be good stewards of all that you've blessed us with. As our heads are bowed and our eyes are closed, I'm not going to ask to raise hands, because when you talk about money, man, it's really uncomfortable and it's really trying. But I want you to think about your priorities right now. Are you out of debt? You know, that 10, 10, 80. Are you out of debt? Are you saving a little? Are you giving a little? Are you living on what you have? Are you trying to be something else? Whether you're online or you're sitting here, I just want to encourage you. Where's your treasures? What do you treasure the most? Where your treasure is where your heart is. As our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed, I want to ask you, pray for your family. Your children or grandchildren, your spouse, maybe brothers or sisters, aunts or uncles, because that needs to be your treasures. You know, maybe money has nothing to do with you today. Maybe this just has nothing for you today other than this one thought. Do you treasure your family? Lord, I thank you for family. There's so many things that want to destroy our families. So many things Satan uses to destroy the love, the joy, the peace in a family. And one of those things, Lord, is money. Lord, I ask you to bind that evil, to set us free from the trap of just a little bit more, to set us free from the trap of debt, to set us free that we may have free families who find peace and joy because they're the children of God who supplies all their needs. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Again, as I've said, I thought, how do I end the message? Because it's just a kind of different message, but it's a message I felt God wanted me to say. Now, maybe I read God wrong, but I really believe if God wanted me to say it, there was somebody here that needed to hear it, or somebody out there online that needed to hear the message, that needed to hear this. So I don't know what God has planned for you, but I want you just to sit for a few minutes. And I want you to treasure those things that you treasure most right now. Just think about that. Where your treasure is where your heart is. Do you treasure your spouse? Do you treasure your family? Where are your treasures? Just take a few moments. Maybe there's some things you need to decide about your debt, about a budget. I don't know. That's between you and God. But I want you to think about, what do you treasure this morning?